The decision came after sunset, when the palace corridors had emptied and Britain believed the royal day was over. Inside a locked room, Prince William placed his signature beneath an order carrying the king's authority. Minutes later, Meghan received the message that would destroy the last visible link between her and royal life. From that night forward, she could no longer use the title Duchess of Sussex. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. William stayed seated after the final briefing ended. He reread the last page, placed his pen beside the folder, and kept one hand on the signed order. The formal instrument, a written command carrying the monarch's approval, ended Meghan's right to use the title publicly at midnight. That mattered, because the name had become more than ceremony. It shaped introductions, business dealings, international appearances, and the final connection between her independent life and the crown. Meghan felt the room tighten when the notification appeared at her California home. She read the decisive sentence once, then again, as though repetition might expose some hidden mistake. Her aide stood nearby in silence until she asked whether William had personally approved it. The answer came clearly. He had not merely approved the action. He had ordered its execution after King Charles authorized the final step. The timing carried its own cruelty. Palace officials released the notice during the final hour before midnight, leaving almost no space for a rival statement, legal challenge, or public appeal to interrupt the announcement. A sealed memorandum supported the order, containing documented branding disputes, private warnings, and recorded accounts of promises the palace believed had been broken. Charles had studied that file before allowing his elder son to proceed, knowing the decision would defend royal authority while deepening the fracture inside his family. Harry discovered the truth only after Meghan. His name appeared on a secondary notification list, a cold administrative detail showing that the palace no longer considered him part of the inner circle. When he entered and saw the message on her screen, anger crossed his face before he could hide it. She turned toward him, demanding to know whether he had expected this. His silence lasted too long. Meghan refused to accept that the night was over. She ordered a call with William, convinced one conversation could still stop the order before midnight. But when the line finally connected, she heard no hesitation in his voice. He was no longer speaking as a wounded brother-in-law. He was speaking as the future king. Behind the legal language stood 4 people bound by marriage, memory, and years of unresolved pain. For Meghan, the title represented recognition. For Harry, it was proof that his royal birth had not been completely erased. For William, it had become a symbol of authority repeatedly challenged. And for Charles, it represented a family wound that could no longer be separated from the survival of the crown. Meghan had carried the name Duchess of Sussex into almost every part of her public life. The title, an official rank connected to the county of Sussex and granted through marriage into the royal family, appeared in introductions, charitable projects, private correspondence, and international appearances. It gave her independent work the weight of royal history. Losing it, therefore, meant more than changing a line beneath her name. It threatened the identity she had built after leaving palace duty, and the influence she believed she had earned beyond it. Harry entered after hearing her voice rise from the next room. He leaned over her shoulder, read the palace notice, and immediately recognized William's controlled phrasing. The sentences were cold, precise, and impossible to misunderstand. When Meghan asked whether he had known this was coming, he hesitated. It lasted only a few seconds, but those seconds changed everything. She saw fear in his face, followed by guilt, and understood that the order had not arrived without warning. William had sent his brother one final personal message weeks earlier. In that documented exchange, the prince urged him to separate private family identity from the public use of royal status. He warned that affection between brothers could not protect an arrangement that weakened the crown's authority. Harry never replied. He had convinced himself that silence would prevent escalation, But silence had instead allowed the decision to move forward without him. Charles felt the same conflict from a different room and a different position. Before authorizing the action, the king studied an old family photograph showing both sons before duty, and resentment had divided them. He wanted to protect the younger one from total exclusion, yet delay had turned a private family dispute into a constitutional problem. A constitutional problem meant the disagreement now affected how royal authority was understood, not merely how relatives treated one another. Meghan saw the removal as an attempt to shrink her achievements and rewrite her place in royal history. Harry tried to explain that his father still wanted to protect part of their connection, but she no longer trusted reassurances. William, meanwhile, believed every unresolved exception would eventually become his burden as heir. He feared inheriting a monarchy weakened by rules no one was willing to enforce. Yet the order had not begun with lawyers, advisors, or a palace committee. It began during one formal royal commemoration, when a private agreement was broken in public. That ceremony became the point of no return, and the moment William decided another warning would no longer be enough. Months before the Midnight Order, the royal family gathered for a remembrance ceremony, intended to project unity. Every appearance had been negotiated, every title carefully listed, and every public introduction agreed upon in advance. Yet, as the event began, a single change shattered the arrangement. Meghan stepped forward under a title the palace had privately asked her not to use, and William watched the agreement collapse in front of the entire royal household. Palace officials had spent months trying to draw one careful line. Meghan would remain part of Harry's family life, but her royal status would not be used to strengthen independent commercial, political, or public ventures. The Duchess of Sussex title, a rank granted through marriage and recognized by the crown, carried authority far beyond a private family name. Charles had kept every warning confidential because he feared formal punishment would drive his younger son even further away. The ceremony changed that calculation. During the Royal Commonwealth Remembrance Ceremony at Westminster Hall, an event honoring shared service across Commonwealth nations, Meghan instructed the Master of Ceremonies to introduce her as Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Sussex. 3 days earlier, she had approved a written agreement using only her personal name. The alteration was small in length, but devastating in meaning. William heard the new introduction from the front row. He turned slowly toward the Chief Private Secretary, the senior official responsible for managing the monarch's most sensitive affairs. The courtier lowered his eyes. Neither man needed to speak. A promise made directly to the palace had just been broken before the family, invited dignitaries, and an official recording. Meghan met the prince in a side chamber when the ceremony ended. She insisted the introduction reflected her marriage, her identity, and the place she had earned within royal history. He answered that the palace had demanded only one act of restraint. His voice remained controlled, but the anger beneath it was unmistakable. She accused him of choosing humiliation over family. He replied that public defiance had made the humiliation unavoidable. Harry entered before either could leave. He accused his brother of treating Meghan like an outsider, while expecting her to carry every wound in silence. William told him the fight was no longer about belonging. It was about whether promises made to the crown still meant anything. The Duke moved closer, but his elder sibling refused to step back. Catherine later urged William not to act while anger controlled him. In a documented private conversation, she warned that punishment issued in fury would look like revenge. He listened and waited for months. Yet new disputes over branding, correspondence, and public introductions followed, turning one incident into a pattern. Charles eventually opened the sealed memorandum and found the ceremony's audio recording, the emails, and the revised introduction card inside. The Westminster breach was not the whole case. It was only the first entry. The evidence convinced the king, but before the order could be signed, William demanded one final face-to-face confrontation. No lawyers sat beside them. No aides carried folders or whispered advice. William and Meghan entered the private drawing room alone, each believing the other had misunderstood the true nature of the conflict. Between them rested a single envelope containing the proposed order. Neither touched it at first. Then he closed the door, took his seat, and told her that the age of informal warnings had ended. William spoke with deliberate calm. He explained that the proposed action concerned only the public use of the Duchess of Sussex title, not Meghan's marriage, personal name, or connection to Harry. The title, an official royal rank granted through marriage, carried the authority of the crown wherever it appeared. That distinction mattered because the palace believed her independent ventures were still benefiting from royal recognition, while she believed the name had become part of her own identity. Meghan pushed the envelope back across the table without opening it. She reminded him that the title had been granted on her wedding day and argued that it could not become a temporary privilege whenever the family felt challenged. Her voice sharpened. She accused William of trying to erase her because she had refused to remain silent about her experience inside the monarchy. William did not move. He answered that criticism had never been the decisive issue. The real breaking point was the repeated collapse of negotiated agreements. Each one reached privately and then contradicted publicly. He referred to the recorded ceremony introduction, the preserved emails, and the revised card now contained in the documented memorandum. Meghan called the file a weapon built to justify a conclusion he had already chosen. The chair scraped hard across the floor as Meghan stood. William remained seated and refused to raise his voice. That restraint made the room feel even tighter. She told him he was hiding personal resentment behind procedure. He replied that personal resentment would have produced punishment months earlier, while the delay proved how many chances had already been given. William finally touched the envelope. He revealed that Charles had not yet placed his final signature on the authorization. The king still possessed the power to stop it, and one alternative remained. Meghan could retain private courtesy recognition during family occasions if she permanently ended the title's use in commercial ventures, public campaigns, and independent appearances. Meghan rejected the offer immediately. Accepting it, she said, would confirm that the palace controlled her identity even outside royal duty. She warned that history would remember the decision as retaliation disguised as discipline. William opened the envelope and removed the unsigned order. His answer came quietly. History would also judge whether the crown defended the meaning of its own titles when private promises failed. Meghan left before the conversation formally ended. The prince remained alone, staring at the authorization and understanding that reconciliation had failed. The confrontation settled the emotional question, but only one person possessed the authority to transform William's resolve into an irreversible royal command. William could demand action, but he could not complete it alone. The final authority remained with Charles, a father caught between the son who had left and the son destined to inherit. When the document reached the king's desk, it carried more than legal recommendations. It carried years of family breakdown, unanswered letters, public accusations, and one devastating choice: protect the last bridge to Harry, or protect the authority of the crown. Charles read the final paragraph alone. He removed his glasses, placed them beside the document, and remained silent for several minutes before summoning William. The royal instrument, a written command carrying the monarch's formal authority, would withdraw official recognition of Meghan's use of the Duchess of Sussex style. The prince would then control its announcement and implementation, making the decision part of the monarchy's future structure rather than another temporary answer to a family crisis. William entered knowing the signature would change more than palace policy. Charles asked whether his heir was prepared to carry the personal consequences, including Harry's anger and the possibility of permanent estrangement. He answered that he was prepared, but not without regret. The future king understood that enforcing the order might strengthen the crown while destroying whatever trust remained between the brothers. Charles then revealed a private clause protecting Harry's own title from automatic removal. The king wanted the punishment directed only at Meghan's continued public use, not at the complete erasure of the Sussex family. William challenged that protection, warning that the controversy could continue through his brother's status. His father refused to widen the action. Discipline, he insisted, had to remain specific, proportionate, and defensible. Camilla entered shortly after the signature was completed. She saw the strain in Charles's face and understood that the decision had wounded him before it reached anyone else. The Queen Consort advised him against releasing a personal statement that might sound apologetic or uncertain. He listened, though silence felt less like strength and more like surrender. Palace advisors moved immediately. They prepared synchronized notifications for Meghan, Harry, government representatives, royal communications teams, and every organization using the title in official materials. That coordination mattered because one early leak could allow a competing statement to confuse the order, while one delay could make the crown appear divided about its own authority. William received the signed instrument inside a dark folder. Charles held it for a final moment before releasing his grip, as though he understood that he was transferring both power and blame. The prince accepted it without celebration. The king watched him leave and knew the next stage would unfold faster than any reconciliation could reach it. Once that folder left Charles's hands, the palace machinery moved with brutal speed, and Meghan's old world began disappearing line by line. The order did not wait for morning. Websites were altered. Invitations were withdrawn. Staff received new language instructions. Organizations that had used Meghan's title for years were told to replace it before the clock reached midnight. From California, she watched the change unfold in real time. Every refreshed page revealed another disappearance, turning an official decision into something painfully visible and impossible to deny. Palace digital teams removed the Duchess of Sussex styling from official family references and replaced it with Meghan's personal name. The styling, the formal wording used to present a royal rank, had shaped how charities, event organizers, media partners, and business representatives introduced her for years. New notices ordered them to stop using it immediately. The change mattered because the title had become part of her influence, while the speed of its removal showed that the crown wanted no uncertainty about its authority. Meghan refreshed the official page on her phone. The title remained for 1 second, then vanished on the next load. She became completely still and handed the device to Harry without speaking. He read the altered entry, walked across the room, and called William directly, ignoring every prepared statement his advisors had urged him to use. Harry accused his brother of humiliating Meghan in public, after pretending the matter could still be resolved privately. William answered that the private alternatives had already been rejected. His voice remained controlled as he made one point unmistakable: implementation would not be paused. The prince told him the order was no longer a negotiation between brothers. It was an instruction carrying the king's authority. The consequences multiplied quickly. Several scheduled appearances still carried Meghan's royal style across invitations, press releases, and promotional materials. Organizers began rewriting them before midnight, exposing how deeply the name remained tied to her independent public identity. Each correction felt small on paper, yet together they showed how much of her post-palace life still depended on the connection she insisted she had outgrown. Meghan then discovered a contingency folder prepared weeks earlier by a senior member of her own team. The documented plan contained new branding language, replacement introductions, and title-free templates. Relief never came. Anger did. Someone close to her had prepared for defeat, while publicly assuring her that the palace would retreat. Harry ended the call and admitted that William would not reverse the decision. Meghan looked at the revised materials, closed her laptop, and refused to break down in front of anyone. She announced that her response would carry no crest, no royal styling, and no appeal for restoration. She would answer the palace in her own name. Her decision appeared defiant, but a private encounter with Harry would force her to confront what had truly been lost. After the calls ended and the advisors withdrew, Harry and Meghan were left alone with the silence. There were no palace officials to blame, no cameras to address, and no prepared language to hide behind. For the first time that night, he admitted that William's warning had not been unexpected. Letters had arrived, messages had been sent, opportunities for compromise had existed, and Harry had concealed how close the title was to disappearing. Harry stood across from her and finally told the truth. After the Westminster ceremony, William had sent a personal warning through a documented private message. One more dispute over the public use of the title would trigger formal action. The prince had written without anger, but the meaning was unmistakable. The next breach would no longer end with a family argument. It would end with the crown acting. Meghan felt anger give way to something heavier. She asked why her husband had allowed her to enter the Windsor meeting without knowing how close the order was. Harry admitted that he believed he could quietly persuade Charles to stop it. The king still loved him, and he had convinced himself that the bond between father and son would outweigh William's demand for enforcement. That belief had failed. Harry's admission exposed more than poor judgment. It revealed his grief over how little influence remained after years outside the royal household. He had tried to protect Meghan from fear, but he had also protected himself from accepting that the palace no longer waited for his approval. Meghan reached for a folder bearing the ducal crest, the official emblem connected to their royal rank. She closed it carefully and placed it inside a drawer rather than tearing it apart. The gesture marked a shift. Fighting to restore the title would keep her identity tied to the same institution she had chosen to leave, turning every future achievement into another argument about royal permission. Harry offered to renounce his own title in solidarity. Meghan refused. She told him that another dramatic gesture would transform their marriage into a permanent contest with his brother. William would become the center of every decision, and Charles would remain the judge of every wound. She no longer wanted the monarchy deciding how they measured loyalty to each other. Meghan then made her choice. Her public response would not demand restoration, threaten legal retaliation, or attack the king. She would acknowledge the change and continue under her own name. Harry asked whether she could truly let the title go. Meghan paused before answering. Letting go, she said, was different from forgiving. Then she walked toward the room where her final statement was waiting. By dawn, that statement had crossed the Atlantic, meeting a public reaction more divided and emotionally charged than either side had expected. Morning transformed a private royal rupture into a global spectacle. Broadcasters abandoned planned programs. Newspapers rushed out special editions. Outside palace gates, supporters and critics argued over whether William had defended the crown or weaponized it. Yet one image captured the entire crisis more powerfully than any debate. Meghan's name standing alone beneath a statement that contained no title, no crest, and no appeal for restoration. Palace communications officials released a short confirmation before the morning broadcasts reached their peak. The notice stated that the change had taken effect, and that no further constitutional action was expected. Constitutional action, a formal step affecting the rules, powers, or public structure of the monarchy, carried enormous weight because it told the public this was not another temporary family disagreement. The Crown considered the matter finished. William refused to cancel his scheduled engagement. As he arrived, a reporter shouted whether he had destroyed his relationship with Harry to protect royal authority. The prince paused for a fraction of a second, then continued without answering. His silence looked controlled rather than triumphant. He had secured the decision he wanted, yet nothing in his manner suggested victory. Outside Buckingham Palace, television lights surrounded a growing crowd. A newspaper vendor lifted a front page carrying the words, "Duchess no more," above contrasting photographs of Meghan and William. One supporter placed flowers beside the railings with a handwritten card defending her dignity. Another visitor held a sign, thanking the future king for protecting royal titles from commercial use. The same decision had created two completely different truths. A leading evening presenter called it the night the monarchy separated blood, marriage, and public authority. The phrase spread across broadcasts because it captured what the palace statement avoided saying. Meghan remained connected to Harry, yet the crown had severed her public identity from its power. Meghan's title-free statement soon gained more international attention than the official announcement. Its restrained language shocked critics, who had expected fury, and disappointed supporters, who wanted open retaliation. Harry read thousands of reactions and slowly understood that public approval could never create the reconciliation he still wanted. Every response followed old loyalties rather than the pain unfolding inside his family. Charles watched one debate from a private sitting room. When a commentator described the order as a victory for the king, he switched off the television. The outcome felt nothing like success. It had protected the monarchy's authority while confirming how far his younger son had moved beyond his reach. William privately instructed staff not to celebrate, brief against Meghan, or release damaging extracts from the supporting memorandum. Enforcement would not become revenge. As three statements of closure took shape, her acceptance, Harry's silence, and his final explanation to Charles, the noise began to fade. When it did, only the emotional verdict remained: what had been protected, what had been destroyed, and whether the title had ever been the true source of the conflict. By the end of the night, the title had disappeared from official use, but no one involved felt victorious. Meghan had lost the last royal style attached to her name. Harry had lost another belief, that family ties could override institutional decisions. Charles had preserved the crown by accepting a deeper separation from his son. And William had proven his authority at the cost he had always feared, becoming final where reconciliation had failed. Meghan accepted the termination and instructed every organization, partner, and representative connected to her work to use only her personal name. The Duchess of Sussex style, the formal royal wording once attached to her public identity, would no longer appear in introductions, correspondence, or future projects. That change mattered, because the title had once opened doors across the world, yet it had also kept every success tied to palace approval. Meghan recorded a brief private message for her staff. Her voice remained steady as she thanked them for adapting, and told them their work could no longer depend on an identity borrowed from the past. She admitted through that recorded statement that the loss hurt, but she refused to let the wound define what came next. Harry chose silence. He rejected a retaliatory statement because another public battle would undermine Meghan's decision and deepen the distance between him and Charles. The Duke finally understood that leaving royal duty had not erased royal consequences. His attempt to preserve independence while still holding institutional privilege had placed his wife at the center of an impossible struggle. William met his father after the public reaction settled. He reported that implementation was complete, then admitted the order had felt less like winning than closing a door from the inside. Charles answered that monarchy often survived through decisions families would never willingly make. The king also warned his heir never to confuse constitutional strength, the power to protect the institution's rules, with emotional certainty. William understood the warning. He had defended consistency, but the action confirmed that his relationship with Harry could not be repaired through titles, ceremonies, or private exceptions. The future king had protected the structure he would inherit, while losing another part of the family that shaped him. Meghan placed the old crested folder into storage. Across the Atlantic, William locked the signed order inside the Royal Archive, the secure collection where official crown documents are preserved. Two records disappeared in two distant rooms, ending the same chapter from opposite sides. The crown emerged clearer, but the family behind it stood more divided than before. The title was gone, the order was complete, and the monarchy had delivered its final verdict. Royal identity could be granted by the crown, but personal belonging could never be secured by a name alone. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.